marketplaces like Amazon are not e-commerce stores. Or, so says our next guest, Brian Bowman. He also talks about the first steps to moving off of a marketplace like Amazon. He talks about the 5 propositions you have to know to start an e-commerce store. All sorts of other golden nuggets in this episode. Stay tuned. This episode of AMPM Podcast. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of AMPM Podcast. We're talking about all things e-commerce today, not specifically Amazon. In fact, we're going to talk about non-Amazon ideas, maybe influence, psychology. And Brian Bowman is our guest today, who has a lot of experience in e-commerce from Amazon, not Amazon. And he's going to beat up on Amazon a little bit. He's going to explain to us about his journey of, working 9 to 5 to turning into, flipping stuff as a side hustle to selling on Amazon and then moving on. And in this episode, we're going to talk about some things like the first steps to moving into a more traditional and maybe a little bit more complex selling system, the upsides to it, why it's valuable, and kind of a roadmap for those few processes that Brian suggests is kind of, like I said, your first step. So, Brian, thanks for being on. I've already pretty much ruined the entire episode by giving away all the secrets of what we're going to talk about. But what else do we want to talk about today?
Yeah, we can. I think it's a great thing to talk about. I think I can share kind of what I've gathered after not only going through the transition myself from being a purely, Amazon dependent seller to being a more diversified seller and being off Amazon to now coaching like literally hundreds of people through that process. And just some of the things that we've picked up on, a lot of it is very tactical, but I think that to really have success in business in general, we have to break it down in sort of like 3 steps. There's the tactical piece, right? Like, show me what to do. Like, what exactly do I click on? What do I say? How do I run the ad? What do I sell? Like that stuff. But above that, there's the strategy. And even before the strategy, it's the principle. It's why. Like, why do you want to diversify? Amazon is an incredible platform. It might be perfect for someone. Going off might be absolutely a horrible idea, right? So let's make sure we've got the why set, the real principle. That'll dictate what's the best strategy for you, for your business, for the future that your listener wants. And then that strategy will tell you tactically, all right, this is going to be perfect for you. So I'm excited to talk about it.
All right. So before we get there, let's back up to 10 or 12 years ago, you're working a 9 to 5 job. And you were first introduced to e-commerce through what you called like flipping. So talk about that for just a second. Kind of give us the birth of Brian Bowman, the e-commerce guy.
Yeah, that's funny. So, I've always been like, I guess, an entrepreneur, or, I grew up with parents that were entrepreneurs. So I had started a little business, a brick and mortar business in document management. Did that, then went back. I played professional golf for 5 years. Got injured, had to go back to school. When I went back to school, I was kind of at this place where I was like, all right, I've spent my life doing the thing that
I had to process that for a second. Of all the sports that people play and get injuries, you got a professional athletic, career-ending injury playing golf. How does that even happen?
Yeah, it happens a lot. It's because it's so repetitive. You're in the same position, moving the same way every time. So a lot of it is, a disbalance in the body. Like one side of the body gets stronger than the other, and it's like your shoulder is in the same spot.
That story's not nearly as good as it could have been. I was hoping you'd go more with like the Happy Gilmore. I hit my ball in a pond and like this alligator like bit my foot off or something. So next time I would go with that. But all right, so professional golfer, went to school, 9 to 5 job, keep going.
And I played on the mini tours. I always want to clarify that because people always be like, "Did you play with Tiger Woods?" Like, no. The mini tours are like the equivalent of like AAA baseball.
This is like good, Bush League golf. Like you're a pro, but you're not racing Talladega on Sundays.
Yeah, exactly. And you're really good, but you're dead broke. Like you have no money.
Okay, got it.
So anyway, I had to make a decision. Honestly, for me, it was this moment where I was like, all right, I've followed my heart. I've followed my passion. Now I have to do what I was like meant to do. Get a job, and it was a good run kind of thing. Went back to school, got my degree, became a consulting actuary. Most people don't know what an actuary is. Super like nerdy job using math and statistics, but I learned a lot. And I will say, because of the kind of having that numbers background, that did give me a competitive edge in e-commerce. It gave me an edge in business. I still think that if more business people could make data-based decisions instead of emotional ones, they'll be better off for it in the long run. But so I was working my 9 to 5 and working crazy hours as a consultant. And I was like, yeah, we have to do something else. Like that entrepreneur spirit was in me. And I could not imagine 40 years, of me just doing this, even if it was the right thing to do by whatever measure society has. So we were flipping stuff on the side. Like I had started literally flipping like textbooks. I would go to the Goodwill and find electric razors and would buy them for $5 and would flip them for like 50 or 55. It was crazy. What's that? Used electric razors. And I would put on there, they were used. I would take photos. It's disgusting. I know. It's so nasty. So, but whatever, people were buying them. Hey, that's another lesson. You are not your buyer. So whatever, if you're listening, you're like, no one would buy this. Hey, you let the market decide if they're going to buy. Yeah, and we're not marketing to us. We're marketing to our buyers. So keep that in mind. So anyway, so I did that and we started flipping furniture. That's when we started making some really good money. Like my wife has a really good eye for like vintage furniture. Like she can walk into a house that has like some vintage pieces and she'll know like, oh yeah, that'll sell for 500, that'll sell for 1,000. Like she has an eye for it. So we would go to these estate sales. I got like this pickup truck.
With a big enclosed trailer. Furniture. Please tell me you had like one of those giant enclosed trailers with like, big wrapped with your face on it. Just old beat up pickup truck.
Ram 1500, man, like extra, like 11-foot bed or something, just so I could throw everything in there. And anyway, we started doing that, and we were making like some pretty decent like side hustle money. But anyway, that's sort of what really got me thinking, like, wow, like this might be my ticket out of this 9 to 5, and like the next 40 years of my life that has already sort of been defined for me, by this job. So then I started figuring out like, how do you sell online? How do you create your own private label brand? And Amazon, this is like 2013 ish and 2014. So FBA was just starting to become a thing that people knew about, right? Like people were doing it, but there were podcasts talking about it. It was still the Wild West. And that's when we got involved. And then, that's the journey. And then from there, we built up that brand. We started selling off Amazon. We went through everything that a lot of Amazon sellers go through, the suspensions, and that was scary. And, for no fault of our own, it was like competitors doing real like shady stuff. And that's what opened up our eyes to like, to what we had to do. If we wanted this to be long-term, we had to diversify off.
So let's skip forward a little bit and kind of skip a few chapters. But I know you told me off air that for about 3 years you were selling exclusively on Amazon. It was just Amazon. It was your full-time gig. This is your bread and butter. And at some point you made this decision, hey, we want to get off Amazon. And this isn't uncommon. Like a lot of people want to get off of Amazon for different reasons. People want to expand. People don't like Amazon. There are a lot of products that are saturated on Amazon, but aren't saturated off Amazon. We especially saw this like recently in the COVID crisis. Amazon had a month delay on shipping stuff. So people were jumping over to Shopify, running Facebook ads and blowing through products quick. So I don't really want to get into the reasons why, but what were some of the biggest struggles that you had when, you're looking at this roadmap, this game plan, like I'm on Amazon, now I want to get off. Like what were some of the biggest hurdles in making those steps? And just to clarify, for those of you that aren't really familiar with e-commerce, and Brian, I suspect you'll agree with this, there's a big difference between like e-commerce and marketplace selling. All right. Marketplace selling, something like Amazon, all of the infrastructure is there, all of the platform, the financial pieces, and most importantly, the audience. You throw something up there and they have 270 million people, coming to Amazon US. When you start an off platform, so off Amazon, off Walmart, off eBay, an off platform, e-commerce store, nobody knows it's there. It could be the greatest product in the world, but it's floating around with no eyeballs on it. So you actually have to start putting together some of those attributes that the marketplaces had, like the traffic and like the infrastructure and like the logistics and the SEO and all that. So I just wanted to explain that briefly. So when you were looking at that, what were some of the biggest hurdles, Brian, that you knew you would have to overcome in making that transition away from Amazon?
And this is what day in and day out, I do is helping make that shift if it's for the right person. And that's key. If it's for the right person and the right brand, like the right product.
I'm so glad you said that. Yep. Because everybody thinks there's this hierarchy and everybody has to progress. Like everybody has to leave marketplaces. And that's not always true.
It is not the truth. And you would think I'd be the one to say it's the greatest opportunity. Listen, it is not right for a lot of people. It really isn't. Number one is going to be, let's put the product line aside, because there's a whole set of sort of conditions and things that have to be satisfied on the product. Let's talk about the entrepreneur, the person. There is a paradigm shift of what your focus becomes. When you are on a marketplace, it is product first, person second. And what I mean by that is it is about the product. Even look at how people find what they're going to sell, right? They look at like BSR and they look at, products that are saturated and they have plugins that tell them estimated sales. It is all about the product, right? So you get in the middle, like you try to put yourself in like there's a horde of people coming and you're just trying to stand in, you're trying to like be in their way, right? So they see you. And I'm not saying that we don't focus on the product off of a marketplace, but it is so product centric. The person is like, oh yeah, right. Someone buys this. Let's put in some bullet points that explains how it works or whatever. When you're going to go outside of a marketplace, like you said, you don't have all those people coming to you, those 270 some thousand people every second or whatever it is, millions of people. No one knows who you are. So it's person first, 100%. It's the person. It's what's the desire that the person has? What is it that they want? Where are they? Where are they congregating? Can you get access to them? It's about the person, their hopes, their dreams, their desires. Why do they want the product? Like the why behind it. Then you focus on the product. And I'm not saying that the product can be mediocre. It has to be an extraordinary product, but it's about the person first. And we can unpack this way more. I would love to, because I can tell you universally what I've seen works and doesn't work. And yeah, I can pick it out of a crowd now. Like I can see a brand be like, that has almost no chance of working like outside of a marketplace, and that will crush.
So what are those things? Like if I showed you 10 products right now, what are the things that you're looking at that will say, this is good for off Amazon, this is good for Amazon?
Anything that in general, if we're going to say that I guess if it's very, very commoditized, is going to have a really, really hard time selling outside of a marketplace, because it's a commodity and it's highly commoditized. People want to, they search for, a pen or whatever. Unless you are a high end, high brand, there's a story behind this pen. It's like, I just need a pack of pens. So, anything kind of along those lines is going to be very difficult unless there's a great story behind the brand, right? Of the owner, of what they went through. And you can start building a tribe. And even then, I'll tell you, that is super hard to do. So that almost is like a lot of times it's kind of dead in the water. And I'm not saying it doesn't work. We definitely have had people that have had success, but it's going to be a lot harder than, let's say, a home decor line that
it's very specialized and unique, and like it captures people attention with Pinterest ads and like.
Exactly. And then the story behind the founder and like why they started this. And maybe there's a bigger cause behind it. We call it a mission-based USP. Every brand has 5 propositions that they must define. And everyone knows the unique selling proposition. There's actually 4 other ones that are really important, but the main one is the unique selling proposition.
All right, what are those other 4? Let's like just dive down there.
The other 4. So you got 5 propositions in a brand. You have your unique selling proposition. Why should I choose to do business with you? Why should I, the prospect, choose to do business with you, given all the other options to me available in the marketplace? If you can't clearly define that, you're like dead in the water, because the barrier to entry has never been lower than ever. It used to be hard to start a brand. Now with a credit card, in your mom's basement, right? Like someone can open up a store and bam, they've got a brand, quote unquote. So the barrier to entry has never been lower, but the good news for you, for your listener, is the pull of sameness, is what kind of we call it, is it doesn't take, like Warren Buffett says, take the high road, it's less crowded. It doesn't take much to separate yourself from what everyone's doing, right? That pull of sameness and differentiating yourself. So answer that question. Why should I do business with you? The other 4 are your unique value proposition. How is your product or whatever you put together as like an offer more valuable than the sum of its individual parts? And how are you going to help me get a result faster? Like ultimately what I desire to have. How are you going to make it more convenient? Is there some status in owning your product? That's how you raise value. One of the fastest ways to raise value is intangible things like status, bragging rights, speed, convenience, to the end result. The third is an irresistible offer. You have to have a great offer, or else you get kind of lost in that sameness. A unique experience proposition. I think that of all the propositions, this is the one that's most, how do I put it? It's the one that you can most easily leverage because nobody thinks about it. This is one of the things we cover in so we have something called the e-commerce challenge, and we talk about the unique experience proposition, because your emails, for example, are a touch point that most brands totally overlook. It's just like, oh, they blast out some emails, you buy their product. Yeah, you get a confirmation and a shipping confirmation number, but that's it. Our post-purchase emails that we show our members of our program are like deep. Like they're like 14, 15 emails deep. They go on for 30 days and it's an experience. We want to provide an exceptional experience for our customers. That's how we build up a bond and obviously higher lifetime value. And then the last is unique safety proposition. So that's your fifth one. Unique safety is, somebody's got to take the risk in the transaction, and it better not be your buyer. So that's where you get the guarantees, risk reversals.
All right, so that was a good rabbit trail to run down, though, because a lot of times, like, we know those are there, but we forget to make a checklist of them, right? So the irresistible offer, for example, like, we sometimes think that whether we're selling it on a marketplace or off a marketplace, whatever, like, as long as our price is good, that's great. But if we're not throwing in like hey, I can't say no to this, like, you can't afford to turn down this offer, like, it doesn't matter. Right. And a lot of time, and there's a lot of ways to do that. We won't go down that rabbit trail right now, but it's interesting because I learn a lot doing these things, and I'm here making notes. Literally, I'm making notes for a brand that I'm launching right now. I'm like, oh crap, I forgot about that. I got to go and do this. So that's really good information. All right. So we talked a little bit about like some of the biggest hurdles, looking to an Amazon seller, marketplace seller migrating off that marketplace. So once they've kind of assessed the hurdles, they've determined that, hey, I can do this. Like, my product should work. We kind of glazed over that. What are the first steps you tell people? Like, hey, it's time to get out of the booster seat, and like actually put on your big girl panties and start walking. Like, what are the steps, those first steps they have to take, like in this, migration to a more traditional e-commerce scenario? When I say get out of the booster seat, I don't necessarily mean like you're a child if you're selling on Amazon. That's not what I mean. But like the progression of like, all right, I'm an immature off marketplace seller. Like, I've got to start like progressing and maturing as an off marketplace seller. Just want to say that because I know I'm going to have like 500 social media trolls blasting me like, are you saying I'm a little baby if I sell on Amazon? No, that's not what I'm saying. But all right, continue.
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, you can, I know we know plenty of stuff. Like, I know tons of sellers that they're making incredible amounts, and it's a great business, and they're doing well. They exit. I mean, you can sell it. It's a great. I think that you just have to see, my dad used to say, no matter how thin the pancake, there's always two sides. So just be aware of the other side. That's all.
Yeah. All right. So we're looking at this other side. We're going to take those first steps. What are those first steps?
The first step is, check those boxes, make sure like, all right. And we'll never know for sure. So there is no definitive, yes, this is going to crush off Amazon or off the marketplace, whatever marketplace it is. But, we realize, hey, there's, we've answered some of these propositions. We know how we can give a great experience. There's a uniqueness to our product, and we've got a good story. Let's test it. Number one is, don't feel like you're abandoning Amazon. Amazon is what's in a lot of ways going to, or the marketplace, in a lot of ways, it's going to fund that expansion. The first thing to do is figure out your 80-20. So Pareto principle, 20% of your efforts will lead to 80% of your results. We find this in business, in nature, it's everywhere. And a lot of times it can be even more extreme. There can be, 95-5. And where just like this small bit of what you have is actually producing all the output. So in your product line, get clear on what is your driver of sales. Like, what is your main product? And what I'm saying is, I'm thinking ahead for your listener. Let's say you're going to run ads because you're going to have to get traction, or you're going to have to partner with influencers. Like, you're going to have to find a way to get attention onto your product. If you have something that's working, chances are on a marketplace, 9 times out of 10, that's going to be the thing that's going to work off the marketplace. So identify that thing first.
So what's something that works for getting eyes on it on Amazon that we would now take and use that same eyeball gathering approach off Amazon? Give me an example here.
Everyone has I try as much as possible to not be the guy with the hammer where everything's a nail. And I know there's a lot of ways to drive traffic. I will tell you what I'm not. I am not the SEO guy. We do it a little bit, but it's not the thing that I know how to do. I am a turn paid ads into profit guy. I'm trying to find dollars at a discount. So if running ads is like step 5. Like first we have to let's get a basic store in place. With some basic basic things we need, some basic conversion assets, make sure we have a decent product page. Here's a tip that I would share with all your listeners. Before you run ads, get a basic video made on your product pages. Like I can't tell you the difference it makes to have a video conversion asset on your product pages. So we want to give it the best chance it can to convert. So we have our store. We have a decent theme. We kind of put our products up there. We are going to start focusing. This is our methodology. We're going to start with paid ads. Probably going to start on Facebook and Instagram, right? Same platform. And we're going to focus on that main product, that 80-20 product, that 90-10 product. And we're going to drive the traffic to the site, to the product page. And we have a thing called the essential funnel, and we won't get into all of it today, but there are definitely things you want to have in place, from your content to your product pages, to your cart, to your checkout, beyond the checkout. What do your email sequences look like? Recapturing, capturing, customer information. Like there is definitely a whole process, but I will tell you that where we start is we get the traffic going to that product page first with that number one seller. That's like your starting point. And I would recommend, again, get some basic, when people start running ads, they freak out because they're like, oh man, like I'm going to spend $100 or $500 or $1,000. Think of that as like intelligence gathering. You are buying information so that you can have a clue as to who is interested in your product. So you're going to test audiences, you're going to test different images, you're going to test different ad copy. And think of it as an investment into data, which is going to allow you to make a better decision going forward.
So you're talking about making that first step, setting up a website, setting up a funnel. I have to ask you, is Shopify the answer?
We have sellers that are doing they're doing extremely well, like multiple six figures a month on Shopify. We got sellers on BigCommerce. We have few people on WooCommerce. I will say most of them are on Shopify. Here's the thing. Is it the answer? No, it's a tool. And that's the one thing that if I could just blast this out to everyone, it's not the sexy thing to say. And the founders of these companies may not like me saying it, but here's the deal. These are all tools, guys, and gals. They're just tools, and they still require your brilliance behind them, or your team's brilliance. You got to, they're going to help you do it a lot easier. It used to be that if you could, building a store literally was not that long ago was a competitive advantage.
Yeah, because it was a nightmare, because you had to know all the plugins, you had to know how to build a WordPress site or whatever it was. Like, it was terrible. And yeah, Shopify may not be very robust. There's some downfalls to it, but essentially, for all intents and purposes, for argument's sake, if I have a credit card number, I can have a Shopify store running in less than an hour, right? It's not pretty. There's a lot of missing pieces, but the actual function of Shopify store can be running in an hour.
And one thing I would say is just keep in mind, like, what makes Shopify so good. And again, a lot of platforms will work. We like Shopify because of the back end. The back end is very, very clean. Remember, taking a payment is the easiest part of a transaction. That's the easy part. It's what happens on the back end: refunds, returns, shipping, confirmations, product like hierarchy, promotions, like all the stuff on the back end. That's the complex part that can get messy, and that's what Shopify, in my experience, does better than anyone else. Now, as an acquisition tool to get new customers, there's a lot of things that we use. We use Shopify. We use funnels, like we use ClickFunnels. We use a lot of different things. But in terms of an e-commerce store as like your hub, I would, if I had to pick one, if you forced me to, I would probably pick Shopify as your storefront online.
Gotcha. So there's always exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, that's the first place you would point people to look at. All right. So those are some of the
And
first.
it doesn't, by the way, I don't want anyone to feel like you have to switch, because I run into that all the time. They're like, oh, I'm on WooCommerce. Does that mean I can't do it? No, but you're good. Just keep going.
Yeah. Basically all the functions create the same, like actions. They're just organized a little bit differently, we'll say. All right, so you've got somebody that has looked at their baby steps to moving away from Amazon. They've looked at their USP. They've looked at, is this product going to work? And they decide to start making that plunge. You've helped and seen a lot of people do this. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that these people that have decided to make this journey have when it comes to migrating away from a marketplace?
It's when we start on marketplaces, we're spoiled. We are spoiled. You throw the product up there, and the next day you're like, what? I'm selling. This is awesome. I'm making money. That's one of the biggest hurdles. If you notice, a lot of it's psychological. It really is. It's having the mindset that there's advantages to being off a marketplace, but there's challenges. There's challenges and advantages of being on the marketplace. That's one of the biggest ones. Is you will most likely not just start making sales the minute you turn on that ad. That's why I made that point before about, we call it the ad money mindset, is knowing that first 500 to maybe $1,000, you may or may not make sales. And if you do, they probably won't be profitable. They'll probably be actually, it happens. We've definitely turned on ads and bam, it works, but that is not normal by any stretch of the imagination. So I think it's a mindset that, all right, I'm in this thing for the long haul. Because it can be so easy to go back to what's comfortable, which is the marketplace, right? And that's usually the challenge, is as you start to scale, it's trying to find the balance of how much do we dedicate to the store versus the marketplace. And that is like, it's a good challenge to have, but it definitely is a point that people have to question and make a decision in their business. But number one is that, Tim, is realizing that you're not going to make sales right away, and that's okay. That makes you absolutely in the majority. And a lot of multi-million-dollar businesses have been built on 1% conversion rates, 2% conversion rates, and lots of no sales at the beginning.
And we've talked a lot about how difficult this is. Like, you just said it. I'm quoting you. We're spoiled on marketplaces. It's easy. We're getting sales. If you move off of marketplace to a store, now you've got to drive your traffic. You've got to set logistics. Like, we've made it sound tough. But what are some of the upsides of doing it? Like, why did you decide, hey, this is going to be a lot of work, but it's worth it? And why do you encourage people to look and honestly evaluate if this is a good option for them? Obviously, there's some sort of advantage to it. And I have some ideas, but I'd like to hear your list.
Yeah, I think one of the, the low-hanging fruit when it comes to marketplace is they own everything. I mean, at the end of the day, they own the customer. They own the, I can make a strong case. They own the brand. They own everything.
Let me get on my soapbox. One of the things that pisses me off the most is entitlement. And I see that all the time with marketplaces where people get pissed off about something. Amazon shut my listing down. This person is on my listing. This person copied my ASIN. Amazon allowed a return from my customer they shouldn't have. Guys, that's bullcrap. None of it's yours. It's not your listing. It's not your ASIN. It's not your customer. None of that stuff. You are not entitled to own those things. Amazon is basically letting you put your product, but that's it. Aside from that, it's not yours. And look, I sell on Amazon. I love Amazon. It's great, yada, yada, yada. But just you kind of fired me up there talking about that. Like, and I wish I could get this through some people's thick skulls, because I see it all the time. People getting pissed off. I can't believe, Amazon did this and this and this, but it's theirs. It's their marketplace. You didn't have to build it. If you don't like it, go build your next Amazon. But all right, so continue.
That's right. That's right. And that goes back to what I was saying, is like the principle. Like, if that's something that, because tactically, we could show you what to click on the ads and how to build a store, but let's go up to the high level, which is the principle. Like, is it the right decision for you? If that's something you feel, not you, Tim, but like if somebody feels, or like, I want to actually have customers, right? There's a Dan Kennedy saying that a business without a mailing list, back then there was no email list, right? A business without a mailing list is not a business. Now, Dan kind of has a way of speaking to get you fired up. And some people say, well, no, my business is a business, even though Amazon or whatever owns the customer. I don't want to argue that point, but there's something true in that statement, right? That a business without a mailing list, without a customer list, is not a business. So if that's like a thorn in your side, it's something that drives you nuts, well, guess what? That's a really good reason to start considering building your marketplace. And that's what it was for us. It was this realization that we were beholden to someone else, our future, our livelihood. We went through shutdowns, we went through suspensions, all that. I wasn't working anymore. This was my full-time gig. So there was fear there, and the best way to predict the future is to create it. So if you want something else, don't wish it was easier, just get better. Wish you were better. That's a Jim Rohn quote that I live by. Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. So figure it out. You go out there and do it because you want it. So
if I own a brand, I guess the example of why you would move to marketplace, we as Amazon sellers, we are selling a product in a grocery store. We're selling in a Walmart store. Imagine that. People walk into Walmart. They may pick your product up off the shelf, but they're checking out to Walmart. They're Walmart customers. They're not your customers. They're in Walmart's parking lot, Walmart's building. And if you've got a small brand, that's great. You wouldn't get that exposure, but you're still just selling to Walmart, right? But I guess creating an e-commerce store would be the same as if we put ourselves in our own storefronts. We put our own stand up inside the road, our own retail shop. Now those customers are yours. You have the customer information. You have all of that stuff. So definitely huge advantages because now it's yours. Nobody kicks you off the shelf. You either swim or drown on your own, which sometimes is scary, but it's great. But you do have your own customers. You do get to call the shots. And I think it raises the ceiling. Like the potential growth, but the potential for growth is unlimited. We're on a marketplace, like you said, every day you wake up and there could be some bot roaming the Amazon backend, decide, we're just going to shut this listing down. There's not a dadgum thing you can do about it, but fight it.
And just a couple of things I want to say to this too is okay, so that's the low hanging fruit, but there's a few other things. I mean, there is a timing issue. Like right now, I told you, I used to be an actuary, I'm math and stats guy. I'm a data just nerd. I'm always looking at data. Something remarkable has happened with just everything that's happened with the pandemic and how kind of the shifts that have happened in society. And we could have a whole other podcast. We could just talk about all the trends we're seeing and why I am certain that we're not going to go back to what retail looked like. Because all we did was accelerate a trend. So my point is, if you've been thinking about it, if you're listening to this and it checks all the boxes, my goodness, there's never been a better time in history. We're entering e-commerce 3.0 right now. The growth that we've seen with these small, no-name independent brands that have literally 10x'd overnight. I can show you graphs, charts. We're literally on March 13th. I mean, I can point to the spot you could see it. It is flat growth to this the growth is 5-10x. It is a remarkable time, and there's so many reasons. It's not just because of attention. It's customer behavior. It's emotions are high. There's a way to connect now. People are giving small brands a chance. But it drives me to my other point in terms of why I think it's incredible. There is nothing. If you are a brand owner, you're passionate about it. You actually want to serve your customers. When you get that email from your brand, your customer, thank you so much, this was amazing. And you can email them. You could send whatever you want in an email. You could say whatever you want. No one's going to shut you down because of what you said. It is incredibly gratifying. And just knowing, like you said, Tim, once you can start buying dollar bills for 50 cents, it's on. We're going. We're going to turn the faucet on, and overnight, we can start scaling, which is very hard to do in a marketplace because you're always kind of dependent on that traffic flow. You can run some ads, but it's totally different than me being able to go out to 30 million people and put my product in front of them.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, man. You got me fired up.
I know.
So I know we need to wrap this up, but on this podcast, we don't pitch stuff. We don't We try not to be overly promotional about stuff, but we also want to share value. So I want to tell you guys, you listeners, about Brian's funnel. All right, let's talk about his sales funnel. We know that he does some coaching, some consulting, and I'm not endorsing it. I haven't been through it, none of that thing. Tim Jordan, AM, PM podcast, Helium Tenor, none of its affiliates endorse this, but I do want to say this. Brian's a legit guy. I've known him for a while. I like his content, and he has a free 30-day e-commerce challenge that you guys can all be a part of. What's the domain you guys can go to there? Or that they can go to?
Yeah, it's just all one word, no hyphens or anything, just ecommercechallenge.com.
And it's like a 30-day get started e-commerce store challenge. It's free. Can't be free.
And it's actually email marketing. So we're not even showing you how to get started. It really is if you want to get what I believe is the foundation before you ever run ads, before you do anything else, to get your email marketing in place. Still the highest ROI that we see when we compare it to other channels. We're going to give it all to you. It's totally free. And and
you have a Facebook group, you have a website, it's e-commerce underground, right?
Yep. So Ecom Underground is our website. We have a group and a podcast called Marketing for E-commerce. You can check it all out.
Thank you, Brian, for being on. I feel like, I'm making my notes and I'm writing down like all these tips that I'm going to apply to my own business, and also making notes like, oh, that was good. That was good. We need to get a quote off that. So thank you for being on. Really valuable. Those of you that are listening, please do us a favor. If this is valuable to you, thumbs up this on YouTube if you're watching it there. If you're listening in a podcast platform, leave us a review. We like to rank our products. We also like to rank our podcasts. And if you guys give us those reviews, that helps with that. And we want to hear feedback. Even if it's not good feedback, that's all right. Let us know. Not publicly. Send me a private message. No, I'm kidding. But we do want to keep putting out content that you guys like and are learning from. And we're going to keep trying to do that. So give us some feedback however you want to, and we'll definitely read all those messages and take them into consideration. Brian, thanks so much for being on. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you guys on the next episode of AM PM Podcast.